We are live. This is the market update. I am your host, Bill Noble. So we got a little bit of decoupling going on in legacy, huh? Stocks got problems and you can feel it in crypto. Want to know what to do? Stay right here. Want to know if it can last? Stay right here. Don't go anywhere because this could be the dawn of crypto. Now, how laughable is it that 2 days ago, and I have the articles so we can all have a laugh, so you can print them out and tack them up on your wall, that we were talking about crypto winter 3 days ago, or at least the media was. I wasn't. You weren't, but the media was. Crypto winter, it's the end of the world. Even I was like, oh my God, can I hold on? Yeah, okay. You know what happens the next big Bitcoin rally? Bitcoin's going up 10%. ETH's going up 25%. Solana and Sui and all these other altcoins are starting to follow. AI is smoking in crypto. And somebody sent me a tweet that Fetch, or artificial super intelligence token, has some kind of robotics connection. Now, I don't know how big it is, but I do know the robotics market is projected to be 10 trillion. 10 trillion. And we got altcoins in the AI space. Everyone's talking about Farcoin hitting $1 billion, which is impressive. Okay. So again, everybody is talking about the wrong thing. But literally, in other words, everyone is like, wow, gold is going up. It's the end of the world. No, it's not. Gold is simply and plainly a dollar devaluation. You've needed a dollar devaluation for so long. Now, again, what happens when you get one? What happens? What happens when there's a dollar devaluation? Gold goes up, as you can see, and then crypto follows, right? Bitcoin is hard money, right? In the new cyberpunk world that's coming, machines aren't going to use fiat. They're going to use Bitcoin. They're going to use Ethereum. This whole idea where Ethereum is dead, especially with Vitalik talking out about changing the EVM and making it faster. Like, do you know where ETH is generally and versus Bitcoin? It's like people are acting like it doesn't exist. They're acting like it doesn't exist. And altcoins are up 3 to 5% with equities down. And everyone's like, meh. You know why? Because everyone left. Now, I understand the price action was horrendous. I understand people lost money. And I understand this market wore everybody out, which, as I've said, which is why you want to stick around, which is why I've said all along, bull markets push everyone out. You know it's a bull market. You think it's a bull market. But then at the bottom, you think it's a bear market. And at that exact moment, that's when the thing takes off and goes up only. Because if Bitcoin wasn't bothered by NASDAQ, I mean, this is like the legacy disaster, the sentiment. Bond markets are frozen, stocks collapsing, dollar collapsing, gold going up. It's the end of the world. By the way, it's not the end of the world. The exact same thing happened when Reagan got elected in 1982. I have the graph, and when you see it, you're going to laugh. History doesn't always repeat, but it does rhyme, and it does in this case. Okay? Now, does the orange man appear a little bit unhinged on Twitter and Truth? Yeah. But at the end of the day, whatever they're doing now is going to completely crush inflation, which is exactly what happened back in 1980s, early 1980 after Reagan. The only difference was that the president was the nice guy and he had to sit around while this like borderline crazy Fed chairman raised interest rates to 20%, literally. So this time, the Fed chairman's sitting around and the president's the one who's the crazy man crushing stocks, making interest rates actually go up, which again will be a permanent solution to inflation. Now, I don't know if they designed it that way, But I'm sure back in the day in 1980, when interest rates were at 20%, that felt like the apocalypse to them, as this feels like the apocalypse to us, except if you're in crypto. Because if they crush inflation, rates are going lower, Powell is out, and he should be. We'll go over that. And it doesn't get any more constructive. Oh, by the way, while I'm at it, did you know that altcoins topped well in advance of NASDAQ? Matter of fact, you could argue altcoins were crashing a good 30 days before NASDAQ fell out of bed. There were 2 down moves, and we'll go over it. There were 2 down moves in total 3, which is total altcoin market cap. So why is everyone wondering coins are bottoming first? Oh, so he's up 4% today with stocks down. Oh, a flock of them flew over that time. Everyone's wondering what's going on. You know what's going on. Inflation's done. There's no way to trade AI except in crypto. That makes any sense from a valuation standpoint. ETH is not dead. DeFi is coming back. Real world assets is going to be an emergency. We're going to talk about what's going on at Harvard, that's turning into a legal battle because they can't, their endowment that has billions of dollars worth of stuff, they can't sell. They can't get liquidity. So they're like, so, okay, let's go to court. Let's go to court. Let's try to stall it because we can't, there's no bid. There's no bid. Now, on top of that, in order to unlock certain components of legacy, Besant is going to have to put money in the system, even if Powell won't. And Powell's going to do it too, because his phone's going to ring, and there are bond markets all over the world that are just hosed. And if treasuries blow up, everything blows up. So the printing press is going to be on. People are going to discover their allocations to Bitcoin are way too small. The macro community is probably just now figuring it out. Like, wow, look, Bitcoin's going up with stocks going down. What should we do? What should they do? What should you do? This is not difficult. It is for the people in legacy, but not for us. Now, the whole problem is there's no us. You know what I'm saying? Like the us is down, like altcoins is down 80% because everyone packed their bags and left, except, of course, for you nice people, which I appreciate your viewership. But again, as usual, at the low, at the abyss, exactly. It's a low because no one will touch it, and it feels like the abyss, even though Bitcoin is just sitting at 80 and hasn't really even moved, but has like 20, 30, 40% upside. There is absolutely no reason why Bitcoin cannot be making a new high by the Bitcoin conference at Memorial Day in Vegas. None. And you know what? If that doesn't happen, they'll eventually get to the new high because no one's going to issue a bond. No one's going to issue anything unless it's backed by Bitcoin. And it's not too late to buy gold, but you know, what are they going to do? Say, oh, we're going to back the dollar with gold. No, you're not. No, you're not. But you could do something with Bitcoin. You could, even if it's small, to change people's interest. And of course, the other thing people have forgotten is that Bitcoin is the rising tide that lifts all boats. Bitcoin is special. And if you're not seeing that now, well, I don't know. I mean, you see it probably, but you know, in legacy, they're going to figure this out. That Bitcoin is different. Bitcoin will be the money of AI. Bitcoin is perhaps the AI trade, the best AI trade, better than NVIDIA. Where is everybody? Let's see who's here. Who do we got? We got Tyler first on the stream. We got Warriors, Zepedas, Crypto Scam, DH, Miguel, Mace, Taz Pinball, Sabrina, Vanessa, what's up? We got Neff in the house, Zav, Warmon, the Soul Survivors. Okay, news. Let's go. Now, we talked about this yesterday, but we're going to talk about it again. So the guy that runs the World Economic Forum, which is essentially your classic globalist, we want you to eat bugs, whatever. He's quitting, right? Because it's these people versus the orange man. And it's on like you don't know. It's on everywhere. It's on in politics. It's on in Congress. It's on the streets with the Teslas. It's on, and it's even on in the dollar and against the Fed. What's the difference between this guy and Jerome Powell? You know what? Not much. And I know that you want the Fed to be independent. And I know all this stuff about they say Powell's independent. Guess what? We found the Eagle King, found the tweet. He's not. He's not. So we're going to bang against these people for better or for worse. Because we're as a country, Western civilization, we're over it. We're over this agenda. And we're going to take some pain. And you know what? We're going to discuss how this kind of pain, along with inflation, was exactly what they did in 1980. We'll go over it. You won't believe it. We caught a Federal Reserve principal economist on hidden camera describing Jerome Powell's legacy as someone who held the line against the wealth inequality and climate change. Looks like the agency may not have only set interest rates, but also social policies. Why are we assuming that a guy who was too late to raise rates and then had a panic and raise rates to 5%, blowing up nearly everyone, driving most average people to the point where, they were going to break? The grocery store was a nightmare for 2 years, right? It's got to be the worst performance of any Fed chairman in history. And we've assumed that he has a neutral agenda. We'll go through the relationship between what bonds look like now versus inflation, what they looked back in when Brandon was president, and we'll go through Powell's performance. We'll conduct a little, we'll just put on the old rubber glove. We'll give this guy a check, because everybody on crypto Twitter is hysterical, right? Crypto Twitter is an expert on tariffs. Then they're an expert on money supply. Now they're expert on Fed independence. Wrong, 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 wrong. And by the way, this is ridiculously positive crypto. George Soros funded attorneys having at it in Minnesota. George Soros is essentially a genius, and he figured out that you didn't have to change governments. You just had to change non-governmental organizations. And I ask you a very simple question. With these kind of characters out there in the world, who's on your side? And the answer is very simple. You are. You are. And that's Bitcoin. That's Ethereum. That's you doing your research in crypto. Okay. You tried. You bought a crypto. It didn't work out. Okay. Okay. If you got any money left, I don't care if it's 10 cents, $10, whatever you got left, keep at it. Because there's people out there that don't like you. And you got to like you. And luckily, the difference between now and 2008, 1980, and all these other apocalyptic things that everyone's talking about, we have crypto. And nobody on this stream quit. I didn't quit. And guess what? Guess what? There is a very solid chance we could be headed for the banana zone, right? I got a colleague. Yeah, she's been calling for this a long time. I've been wearing my crash helmet, hiding under my desk, praying to the God of my understanding that she was correct. And guess what? In 2 days, we went from winter to the banana zone. Watch. Okay, so Harvard and their multi-billion-dollar endowment. So the New York Post, which is a right-leaning organization, says, hey, Harvard, sorry you got your funding pulled from the government because of, I don't know. You won't comply with whatever law or, policies are in place. Suck it up. Right? Why do we need to fund you? Oh, gee, there was an article the other day about Harvard having to market sell stuff at the low. They decided to go to court instead. Not happy about their funding freeze. Guess at Harvard, their money is their money and your money is their money. because they want tax dollars from Uncle Sugar. Huh. Got a little bit of a problem, market selling your portfolio. Decided to go to court instead. Okay, so Bobby telling you how it's going to be on food. And the point of all this is that you have a clash. You have this clash. And this clash goes to the Fed, food, all kinds of stuff. And this clash is not going anywhere. Now, again, they kind of screwed up on tariffs and they have unintended consequences, as we discussed, which is what happens when governments get involved in economics. But I continue to believe that these guys are eventually going to make good on Web3 and Bitcoin. And Web3 and Bitcoin and Ethereum are destroyed. Bitcoin's not destroyed, but all of Web3 is absolutely wrecked. And they mean what they say, right? It feels like we've been rugged. It feels like we've been hosed because of the price action. But actually, that's all turning in our favor, okay? Doomberg. Look at this, right? Markets are discovering the real trade is sell America. Does it get any more left-wing than these guys? It doesn't matter if they're left or not. They just love the doom and gloom. Like the media is addicted to it. Like the sky is falling. The sky fell between 1980 and 1982 relentlessly. Reagan sat in the White House and smiled as Volcker leveled everything to stop inflation. The same thing's going on now by accident. They got equities down. They wanted equities down. Now they have bond yields rising. Do they want that? No. But they want future generations to be able to buy houses. And the only way to buy a house is to crash the housing market. They have to crash it. And this has happened before. Not in the exact same way. And again, when they do all this, when Doomberg is writing this and it's like, oh my God, it's going to zero. No, it's adjusting. There's pressure in the system and it has to vent. Now, everybody thinks that means legacy goes to zero. Maybe that's true. Maybe it crashes. Maybe it's 1929. Maybe it's all over. Or we have crypto, which is an entire ecosystem, which is massively undervalued. And maybe some of this pressure gets vented through crypto. But Doomberg is not focused on that, right? This is not the Doomberg headline of today at all, right? Trump's tariffs, unpacking the chaos, right? It's all over. Oh my God. Scratch it all out. Okay. Okay. How about buy Bitcoin instead? How about that? How about ETH at the 2017 high? ETH is back to 2018 when they said that they had absolutely no use case. Okay. There we go. Another left-leaning organization. U.S. dollar falls to 3-year low as Trump's Powell threats further dent investor confidence. Powell should be fired and the dollar needs to go. We covered every stream and I can't possibly cover it again today, although maybe. The dollar needs to go lower. And it was like, the dollar is crashing. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. Right? You've had dollar down moves that have been absolutely epic. But they're trying to tell you it's like, oh my God. Like, if they want you to be afraid, I have a colleague who says this. And I have a problem. Don't fall. I mean, you listen to it, but don't be under any illusion that during the other 23 hours of the day, when I'm not talking on this thing, that I don't sit around and go, oh my God, what the heck is going on here? Okay. But they want you to be afraid. They want you to eat bugs. They want you to eat bad food. They want you to think that because the dollar falling, it's all over. No, it's not. The dollar falling, the only way out of a debt crisis is to devalue the currency. Now, you can go read a giant economics textbook, or you can take my word for it, because that's the only way out. The only way out. Gold is on fire. Stocks and bonds crash out. Gold is fundamentally a bet that governments can't control their spending. And that is very, very, very true, right? They said they were going to cut $1 trillion and they haven't cut anything. You know what? Bond markets have a funny way of imposing discipline. Once upon a time, they called the bond market vigilantes. Bond yields go high enough, they will cut spending. Because one thing I wanted to talk about is very simple, is who reigns in Congress? Has anyone thought about this? Like, who tells Congress to stop spending? Well, Congress obviously doesn't care. You know, they're running their own personal hedge funds. Who reigns in Congress? The bond market does. The bond market does. Now, is it scary? Sure. And here's Zero Hedge, right? 3 bond charts we're watching. Stress bonds, another strong session yesterday. Move, which is the VIX or fear index, is moving sharply higher. And again, if you're wondering what this has to do with crypto, this is why Bitcoin is higher, right? Right. Bond volatility leaving even elevated VIX behind. In other words, they're more scared in bonds than they are in equities. And that can't stay that way. They're going to have to print. And of course, SPX hates it, right? S&P, like bond volatility and regular volatility, fear, is like poison for stocks, not for crypto. These guys have made a mess. This mess has been in the making for years. Brandon spent $1 trillion every 5 months. And foreigners are selling. They leaned on the Japanese because of trade. FT article this morning, Japan's major investors were sold $17 billion worth of bonds in early April. A substantial portion was treasuries. People are selling. Harvard can't sell. What's the only hedge? Bitcoin. It's the only way out. Now, again, people coming down on Trump hard. The art of the deal works if the other side isn't necessary to buy your bonds. This is true. But interest rates are going higher and inflation will be crushed. And if inflation is completely crushed, interest rates are going to 1%. No one's talking about that. Just like nobody was talking about interest rates going to 4% 3 years ago. What currency is going to replace the dollar? None. Okay, but gold has been replacing Treasury as a central bank reserve asset for 10 years. Gold has been going up versus everything for years and years and years. There's only one thing that can replace the dollar, and you know what that is. And to tell me that Bitcoin, I don't know, what is it, 15% above Michael Saylor's average price at 80-something K, in my opinion, it's a giveaway. Even if they hit it again, good luck. The whole world's going to be down there to buy it. Grayscale bought 70 million. That's not a lot considering, considering the overall daily volume, but inflows are coming. Okay. Dow's dropped 1,000 points 4 times since Liberation Day. Yeah, it was liberation from inflation. I'm sure they didn't plan it that way, but that's what it really is. They want inflation where it was for 50 years, which is like 2%, not 50 years, since the 80s. 2%. That's what they wanted. US dollar lost 40% of its purchasing power relative to gold. This should be the biggest story in the world, and it's not. Actually, bro, it is a pretty big story. Everyone's talking about it, but no one's talking about SUI, Solana, stable coins running on these networks, DeFi, RWA. Okay, gold goes to 5,000. Great. I have this super valuable rock that central banks use as a reserve asset. The dollar has been effectively devalued. Now what? I mean, it's not that this trade doesn't make sense, but it's like, so what? Now what? What are you going to do? The dollar's devalued. Okay. Rates are going to go lower. Okay. The Fed chairman's a goofball. Okay. Now what? It's obvious. It is now. It wasn't 5 days ago when everyone was talking about winter. Okay. Gold at 3,500. Notice no headlines about Bitcoin. Nothing. Gold is up bad. RSI at 1980 levels, which is where I got the idea to look at what we'll talk about in the PowerPoint. Okay. Kind of terrifying, to be honest, about gold. Sure. And that's usually what happens at the abyss. At the abyss, You don't want to touch it. It feels horrible. You don't want to buy it. If you do buy it, you don't sleep at night. Who do you think doesn't sleep? You think me getting on this thing and staying bullish for the last 2 weeks, pounding the table on all this stuff, it's mind-bogglingly difficult. Now, the good news is I'm helping nice people like you stay involved, which is what keeps me going. But everyone's terrified. You should be terrified at a low. That's the definition of a low. Was anyone terrified when the orange man was issuing his whole meme coin and on inauguration and they were talking about American-made cryptos and every YouTuber, including me, had the American flag and we're like, we're so back. We're never leaving. And then boom. It's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. Why was the perfect time for a rate cut right before the election when inflation was demonstrably higher? Good question. I know the orange man wants the dollar lower, but a rapidly strengthening yen caused leverage traders to have to sell. So more forced selling in equities. That's the bottom line. Thankfully, Bitcoin knows that if interest rates rise, this is a code word for Besant. Besant is going to have to print. Arthur Hayes has been saying this. I've been saying it. He's obviously bigger than me. It's going to happen. They cannot allow bond markets to freeze and not function without doing something. And even if Powell is a deep state operative, he knows that too. Vitalik to make Ethereum faster. What do you know? Bitcoin bull run anticipation amidst imminent QE and rate cuts. April 17th, 5 days ago, Coinbase warns a potential new crypto winter as signals turn bearish. Coinbase Institutional warns of converging signs that suggest crypto winter is coming. Can you believe it? They said it was winter and Coinbase was bearish, which is exactly what happens in a bull market. One, they get everyone out. And two, the people who are bullish get short and turn bearish. And then when it turns around, it's a volcano. It's up only. It's the banana zone. Fartcoin above $1 billion. Now that's probably algorithmic nonsense, right? Just kind of moving that higher like SPX 6900 style, but so what? The fact that they can move that to $1 billion and they're declaring winter, you know what to do in crypto. Okay, this is a complicated graph about Microstrategy. Currently, Microstrategy is worth almost twice as much. That's what this line is. This you can't see it. Microstrategy is worth twice as much. Now notice, look at how the legacy guys are tracking this. Oh, let's look to see how overvalued, Microstrategy. Michael Saylor's crazy. Folks, nobody could ever buy the amount of Bitcoin that he could buy in this environment. And no chatbot can copy Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is hard money. So, yeah, his company is trading twice as much at a premium because it's the only stock that can ever get that exposure. No one's ever going to be able to cross that moat. You know what I'm saying? Like back in medieval times, we have a moat around your business. Yeah, okay. And Michael Saylor, I showed him yesterday on podcast going, oh my God, do I have to explain this again? The guy must have to have 3 martinis at lunch just to sit around all day on podcasts and explain this to everybody when it's obvious. And then have everybody tell him that his company is some sort of BS scheme. The U.S. budget neutral has to find budget neutral ways to increase its Bitcoin reserve. Right. So if the orange man takes in $10 billion in tariffs, they should buy Bitcoin with it. They may have to stop the dollar from falling. Just saying. Meanwhile, back at the XRP ranch, Coinbase has trading. Fast American money. Remember all this? After this OHM scam and real world assets, you're going to want a reliable network. Okay. XRP Ledger, even though it's new, Ripple's behind that, right? Ripple is not going to market sell, and drive the price of XRP down 90%, right? Same thing with Solana and all these other things. Yeah, they may be centralized, But if you're not running stuff on reputable networks, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Okay. So, let's look at altcoins. So, this is, wait. Okay. So, just as a reminder, right? Well, actually, okay. I screwed up that graph. Let's try this instead. Let's go back to Bitcoin dominance. Did you know that, of course, Bitcoin has been performing better than anything else? And Bitcoin maximalists are not surprised by that naturally. But did you know Bitcoin dominance, like gold, is at pretty heavy duty resistance? Right? You have Bitcoin dominance pounding on its premium zone up here around 64%. How before Bitcoin is the rising tide that lifts all boats, right? If you go to, like, say, you start looking at AI, right? Tau with Fartcoin moving. Tau up 7% today. Tau has been going up since April 7th. And we did all this math yesterday. Tau's up 100% off the low. 100%. Right? And what's going to stop this? Nothing. Yeah, I mean, if you have like a mass blow up in equities, sure, maybe. You know, and this is really funny that the Orange Man's company continues to do crypto. And I've said this over and over and over again, that who knew that he was going to do something that was actually really going to cause the decoupling and the change in crypto. Like, who knew? I remember him giving a speech at these big euphoric campaign rallies where he said, because when I get in office, things are going to be different. I think they had this thing queued up the whole time. Walk in and crush inflation. Just crush it. Okay. If you look at TA, 13 bottom in ETH versus Bitcoin, no one cares. Watch out in Ethereum. Just as a reminder for any new people, dollar index, right? Yeah. Okay. 1985, 2002, there's your dollar index crash. 2 red quarterly bars. 8 more coming. 8 more. Okay. So my dearest hope is that the day traders who have been selling Bitcoin, leaning on 89, sorry guys, get smoked. When they try to short it and it doesn't work, they're going to keep fighting it and it's going to keep going. You need people to not only miss it, but fight it. So you have shorts, you have bears. You have bulls that resort to day trading. You have people who miss the low, then they start fighting it. When they miss moves, they fight it. And when they fight it, it just keeps going. Right? It's a range reset. They get this thing above 90. The new range is going to be 90 to 102. That's it. I've been saying it for multiple days. I know it might be repetitive, but again, no one's paying attention to this, right? Solana is breaking through resistance at 140-ish, and Solana hasn't even attacked this like euphoric Orange Man tweet thing. It's amazing how we moved on Orange Man tweets, yet, the case for the market has never been better. Never. Really, seriously, this is why Satoshi wrote the white paper. This is why I wrote the white paper. And everyone's like, oh, I'm bearish. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Like, legacy analysts are more bullish than crypto people. Okay, so let's see if this sounds familiar to anybody. So Ronald Reagan gets elected in November 1980. And in advance of that, people figure it out. And the market went straight up into the election. Sound familiar? Then it gets to a high, literally right when he was elected. And then the market proceeds to go down for 2 years. Okay. Because the Federal Reserve chairman raised rates from 13% to 17%. Now, eventually calmed down 2 years later and started cutting them. But after taking all the pain early all the pain early, S&P turned around, and by November of 1982, it was actually above the election high, and then it went up only, I don't know, for 30 years, 40 years. It was up only because they broke inflation. Now, this isn't going to take 2 years. I think it's probably going to take 2 months. You break everything, the Fed comes in, and that's it. Now, how much damage they do in equities, I don't know. Who cares, right? Back then, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. So back then, you had a smiling, great, like show business, smiley president, and you had Volcker, who was like Fed chairman, who was like, money supply is out of control, and I'm going to tighten, and I'm going to, you're going to see this my way. Volcker was the bad guy. Now it's the other way around, right? Powell's sitting around doing nothing, and the president has to get on Twitter with Besant and break inflation. Because inflation destroyed everybody, except people who are long NVIDIA, which is only the top 1%. So, people, this has happened before. The only difference is with this, it's not going to take 2 years. It isn't. AI is not going to, with an AI-based economy, you're not going to have a recession, the traditional definition, and then crypto can just turn around and smoke higher. And here we go. Breaking news from the Eagle King. Want the case for Bitcoin? Chinese deflationary tsunami is headed for Europe. Deflation is the problem. Deflation. Which is why altcoins are just, Tau up 8% now. You know what I'm saying? Like, are we seeing a pattern here? Right? If you look at total crypto market cap minus Bitcoin. So this is ETH and friends. This is approaching a major fib circle breakout. Right? Like, this fib circle stopped it here in late December. This fib circle stopped it in January. And now we're coming back to it. Total 3 is the same thing. Stopped it. I thought it was going through up here. I was like, oh, it's going to stick here and then go, and then boom, boom, boom. Stupid. Right? Equilibrium in total 3 on a daily. It's just like, we're at equilibrium now. There's nothing expensive about altcoins anywhere. Anywhere. Everyone's talking about gold. No one's talking about Bitcoin. No one. Avalanche security token functionality. It's currently at 18. The 200-day moving average is at 26. You don't think this stuff can go up? Oh, sharing the wrong screen. Whoops. Okay, here's Avalanche below its 200-day moving average. Here's altcoins approaching this big Fibonacci level. Resistance. We'll see. We'll see. You realize Web3 is only worth $800 billion, and the stock market moves in $1.5 trillion increments. Seriously, they change more in one day than like the Web3 universe is worth as a whole. And I keep saying it, and I keep saying it, and I keep saying it. It's insane. Like ETH. Oh, look at exciting. A green candle. Yes. Do you have any idea how high this can go? If somebody goes, hey, let's run something on ETH. They just have to announce it because there's zero activity on the network. Well, and back in 2016, 2017, they're like, ETH's cute, but it has no use case. Then the next thing you know, there was like an ICO season on there. And I don't understand why nobody thinks AI agents can start issuing coins. Like Farcoin is just like, temporarily anomaly. Is it being ramped by algorithms? Yeah, maybe. But, if you don't, like, for example, In RWA, right? I noticed a coin we were looking at, which, had major fundamental problems a while back. But do you realize the world is already looking for a replacement for Ohm? Like Goldfinch is like 80% off the low and still hasn't hit its 200-day moving average. There's a lot of stuff out there. Everyone's like, it's too late. No, it's not. It's just started. People still aren't getting this. Did you see any news media articles about altcoins? Any? Did I have any? No. It's because there aren't any. Because, they haven't got it turned around yet. What is Coinbase? How do you get turned around? How do you turn it around? Right? How do you turn it around? You can't. When you're an analyst and you publish something like that, you're in trouble. Meanwhile, the orange man and his people are trying to get themselves out of this trap by making whatever deals that they can with whoever they can. They got to get the tariff thing off. They got to get it off the news. And we talked about this. In 2017, when you get the tariff headlines, when the tariff headlines start falling, Bitcoin starts rallying. And I think the tariff headlines, they're going away. They'll make some moderate deal with the Chinese, and then they'll have to get down to the real issue, which is to get Web3 going and to get Congress to cut spending. Or the bond market won't stop putting the hammer to them. So you got to get busy on Bitcoin. These day traders want to get short at 90. Good luck. Good luck. Right? They've been selling the high, and I've been, the trend guys, the trading guys have had they're eating, they're eating everyone's lunch. The trend guys. Altcoins are back. You have a down day in the stock market, whatever. Stocks go down 10%. It could happen. Crypto will lurch lower and it'll come straight back. Though it's just too cheap. Okay. So I think you get the point. Congratulations if you stuck around. If you stuck around and took the pain, make sure you attempt to get positioned somehow to get the reward, even if that means just sticking with Bitcoin. You don't know what to do? Do something. That's the market update for today. We will see you tomorrow.